My third life, I was back in the chair. Same dank interrogation cell in the Crimson Syndicate's basement. Same rusty chains digging into my wrists. The first time, they got me because I walked with too much of a Boy Scout swagger. Brock, my supposed senior, ran me through with a sword before I could even learn his last name. The second time, I learned my lesson. I scowled, I spat, I kicked puppies, or at least I tried to. But then I instinctively said my bad after bumping into someone in the chow line, and Scarlet, my senior sister in this little crime family, caved my skull in with a single palm strike. This time I was over it. I was done. Whatever. Bring on the sweet release of death. Maybe the fourth time's the charm, and I'll be reborn as a particularly comfortable house cat. Across the table, Dominic Vargo, the head of the Crimson Syndicate, stared at me with eyes like chips of granite. An aura of pure menace rolled off him in waves, thick enough to choke on. A branding iron with the Syndicate's Crimson Sea glowed cherry red in the brazier next to him, a little welcome present just for me. Ethan Hayes, Vargo's voice was a low rumble, devoid of any emotion. You got a lot of nerve trying to infiltrate my organization. Anything to say for yourself? I lifted my head and gave him my best death or glory grin. Do your worst. If I so much as flinch, I hope I come back as your lapdog. One of Vargo's eyebrows twitched, a flicker of surprise on my backbone. He waved a dismissive hand at the two brutes flanking him. Leave us. The guards bowed and shuffled out. The heavy stone door boomed shut, sealing the two of us in the suffocating silence of the cell. I closed my eyes, bracing for the end. Again, but the searing pain I expected never came. Instead, I heard the soft scuff of boots on concrete. I cracked an eye open. Vargo, the terrifying crime lord, was tiptoeing towards me. The fearsome scowl was gone, replaced by a look of conspiratorial eagerness. It was weird. It was very weird. He leaned in close, his voice dropping to a whisper that tickled my ear. Kid, relax. We're on the same side. This is just a test from command. My brain blue-screened. What? I snapped my head up, staring at him. His eyes were completely sincere, shining with an almost giddy relief, like he'd finally found a long-lost puppy. You've been through a lot, son. He clapped me on the shoulder a little too hard. This was a high-difficulty assignment. Getting you captured and exposed was all part of the plan. My pupils dilated. I felt my entire worldview being systematically demolished with a sledgehammer. Me? I was a low-level grunt from the Aegis Order, cannon fodder sent on a suicide mission. Since when was I part of some grand plan? I tried to speak, but my throat was bone dry. Vargo saw my stunned silence and gave me a knowing nod. I get it. It's a lot to take in. Don't worry, he continued. Your loyalty hasn't gone unnoticed. As of right now, I'm the only one in the entire syndicate who knows your true identity. From this day forward, you are my acolyte, my most trusted right hand. I'll tell everyone you passed my loyalty test and have fully embraced our cause. Your mission, he said, his eyes gleaming, is to use this new position to identify the other moles hidden in our ranks. My brain, which was just starting to reboot, promptly crashed again. The head mole was asking me, the mole who just got caught, to go find the other moles? What kind of 4D chess playing, Russian doll of a mind game was this? Seeing the hopeful, expectant look in his eyes, my survival instincts kicked into overdrive and drop-kicked logic out the window. I took a deep breath, forced myself to calm down, and arranged my face into an expression of profound wisdom, as if I'd known this all along. I see, I said slowly, my voice a gravelly, magnetic rasp. I understand. Vargo's eyes lit up. What do you understand? I understood Jack Squat, but I couldn't say that. My mind raced, cycling through every spy movie I'd ever seen. I looked him dead in the eye and said one word at a time, the test has only just begun. Vargo shuddered, his expression shifting from respect to outright awe. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, he whispered, rubbing his hands together. You're right. The test has only just begun. So, what's our next move? He was asking me. I stared at his eager, puppy dog face and almost choked. Dude, you're the boss. You're the deep cover spy master. You're asking a glorified intern for the plan? Suppressing the urge to scream, my eyes scanned the cell and landed on the glowing branding iron. I had an idea. It was a stupid idea. To earn their trust, you must first be beyond suspicion yourself, I said coolly. We have to sell the performance. Vargo blinked. What do you mean? I jutted my chin toward the branding iron, a wild, borderline insane smile spreading across my face. Do it, boss. Brand the Crimson Sea right here on my chest. I want everyone in the Syndicate to believe that Ethan Hayes has fallen, that there's no turning back for me. I was bluffing. I was betting he wouldn't have the guts. But Vargo's face went from shock to dawning comprehension, and then to pure, fanatical admiration. Yes, no guts, no glory, he slapped his thigh. Agent, your dedication is on another level. I knew I was right about you. And then he actually walked over and picked up the red-hot branding iron. Wait, dude, are you serious? I was just trying to sound cool. My smile froze on my face as Vargo approached, the heat from the iron washing over me. This wasn't in the script. Shouldn't he be telling me, no, Agent, we can't ask you to make that sacrifice, or something? Boss, I started, my voice cracking slightly as I tried to salvage the situation. It's a metaphor, you know? We could maybe just tell people you did it. Vargo stopped, his brow furrowed with disappointment. Agent, that's dangerous thinking. In our line of work, there's no room for cutting corners. Details determine success or failure. He lectured me with the grim seriousness of a drill sergeant. You think the people in the Syndicate are idiots? Especially your senior, Brock Johnson. He looks like a meathead, but that guy's sharper than he looks. If he spots a single crack in your story, all our work will be for nothing. I was speechless. Brock Johnson? The human bulldozer who skewered me just for walking with a little too much confidence? He's sharp? He's as sharp as a bowling ball. Before I could argue, Vargo was standing over me, his eyes filled with encouragement. Grit your teeth. For the order. For the final victory. Don't worry, I'll be gentle. I looked at the glowing iron in his hand, then at his arms, which were thicker than my legs. Gentle? I don't think you know what that word means. Wait, I yelped, a last, desperate plea. I think we can still talk about this. Maybe we could just use a Sharpie? The effect is pretty much the SSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSS My eyes rolled back in my head, and I nearly passed out on the spot. Pain. So much pain. Vargo, you son of a bitch. When I came to, sputtering and twitching, Vargo had put the iron back. He was admiring his handiwork on my chest with a satisfied look. Perfect, he nodded, as if observing a masterpiece. That sea is bold, powerful, sunken deep. It has a real aesthetic of depravity. No one will ever doubt you now. I looked down. He hadn't just sunk it in deep. I think he was a hair's breadth from branding my heart. I gritted my teeth against the pain, sweat pouring down my face, and forced a stoic smile. For the order, this is nothing. Vargo's eyes welled up with tears of emotion. He grabbed my hand and shook it vigorously. A true patriot. Don't you worry. From this day forward, you are the Syndicate's acolyte, second only to me. The vault is yours to plunder. The training manuals are yours to study. Hearing that, the pain in my chest seemed to fade a little. All this for getting seared like a tuna steak? Maybe it wasn't such a bad trade. Thank you for your trust, boss, I said weakly. Call me Dom. He kindly undid my chains and helped me to my feet. We're in the same boat now. Here, this is for the burn. He handed me a small metal canister. I popped it open. A familiar, antiseptic scent wafted out. Aegis issue nanosalve. The good stuff. Damn, they even used our own medical supplies. This mole operation was fully integrated. I smeared the cool gel on my chest, the burning sensation instantly vanishing. So dumb. I began, trying to sound casual as I applied the salve. What's the plan now? Dom sighed, his face suddenly looking weary. Don't get me started. I've been undercover in this hellhole for 30 years. I finally worked my way up to the top, and what do I find? The place is broke. We're paying guys with IOUs. He leaned in closer, and I suspect my 3 top lieutenants, the ones I train myself, are all spies for the Order. A rock dropped in my stomach. Brock Johnson, Scarlet, and Lily. The big 3. The very same people who had killed me in my previous 2 lives. What makes you say that? I asked, keeping my face a mask of calm. Take Brock, Dom said with a disgusted roll of his eyes. All he does is train. Has 0 killer instinct. The other day in the fighting pits, he knocked his opponent flat, then helped the guy up and asked if he was okay. I mean, who does that? I couldn't really argue with that. It sounded exactly like Brock. Then there's Scarlett. Dom continued his rant. She's the opposite. All she wants to do is kill, kill, kill. Talks about ending people more than I do. But last month when a rival crew tried to hit us, she got so carried away she almost took out the head of the Viper gang who'd come to back us up. She was screaming die, you spawn of darkness, at him. If I hadn't stepped in, we'd have had a war on two fronts. My eyes started to twitch. Scarlett, a true professional. But the craziest one is Lily, Dom said, looking utterly defeated. She looks like a doll, but she's got a core of steel. Her problem? She's a clean freak. A certifiable germaphobe. Last week, I had her interrogate a snitch. She refused to start until the guy had a shower, shampoo, and a fresh change of clothes because he smelled funny. The snitch was so damn grateful he broke down and confessed to everything, including where he left his car keys. I was numb. Holy crap. The entire leadership of the Crimson Syndicate was a three-ring circus of undercover agents. So, Dom looked at me, his eyes pleading. Agent Hayes, Command sent you here to this difficult post because they need you. You, in your new role as a fallen hero, have to get close to them, test them, and, if possible, turn them to our side. What? What was I supposed to turn them with? My rugged good looks? The smoldering sea on my chest? I wasn't here to be a spy. I was here to be a freaking babysitter for other spies. Just as my headache reached critical mass, there was a sharp knock on the cell door. Boss, it's Brock. I'm here to see the new acolyte. A familiar, booming voice echoed from the other side. Dom and I locked eyes. Speak of the devil. His expression hardened. He mouthed two words at me. Test him. I gave a curt nod, even as I mentally cursed his entire family tree. Test him with what? I didn't even know for sure if he was a mole. What if he was just a genuinely nice, murder-averse gangster? If I said the wrong thing, he might just go back to his old habits and run me through with a sword. Again. Let him in, I called out, my voice steady. The stone door swung open, and a mountain of man with a surprisingly friendly face stepped inside. Brock Johnson. He entered and first gave Dom a respectful nod. Boss. And his eyes fell on me. He took at my bare chest, and the raw, red brand seared into my skin. He froze. His eyes widened, his mouth hung slightly open, and his face was a canvas of shock, disbelief, and... Was that pain? I saw that flicker of emotion. This could work. Dom let out a cold snort. Brock, from now on, Ethan is the Syndicate's acolyte. He has passed my test and has severed all ties with his past. Brock's shoulders trembled slightly. He lowered his head, his voice strained. Yes, sir. I understand. What do you want? Dom asked. Brock took a deep breath. When he looked up again, his face was calm, though his usual simple expression held something else I couldn't quite read. Boss, I heard the acolyte had seen the light. I came to offer him a congratulatory gift. With that, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a black duffel bag. I blinked. For real? He brought a gift? Even Dom looked surprised, stroking his chin with interest. Brock walked up to me and handed me the bag with a wide, friendly grin. Welcome to the family, brother. I took the bag automatically, then used my senses to get a feel for what was inside. A second later, my eyes nearly bugged out of my head. The bag was stuffed with stacks of cash. Tens of thousands of dollars, at least. On top of that, there were several vials of high-grade medical stimulants and a slim, encrypted hard drive. Holy crap. Brock, you're loaded. You weren't this generous when you were turning me into a human shish kebab. I stared at him, speechless. Just a little something to get you started, Brock said, scratching the back of his head with a goofy grin. A new guy in the organization needs walking around money. I suddenly remembered what Dom had said. The Syndicate was broke. So where did you get all this cash? The Syndicate's top enforcer is richer than a boss? That doesn't add up. Unless... A wild thought sparked in my brain. Unless this was his operational fund from the Order. Thinking this, I looked at Brock in a whole new light. This big, friendly giant was definitely dirty. I decided to push him. I zipped up the bag, a wicked smile playing on my lips. I stepped forward and clapped him on the shoulder, trying to act like a movie villain. I appreciate the gesture, Brock. I can feel your loyalty. Brock's body stiffened, a hint of nervousness in his goofy smile. Happy to help, Ethan. It's what I do. Words are cheap. I shot back, my voice turning to ice. I need you to do something for me, to prove that loyalty. This was it. Dom, standing off to the side, was practically vibrating with excitement, his fists clenched like he was watching the Super Bowl. Brock's face turned serious. He straightened up. Name it, Acolyte. I'd walk through fire for you. Keep acting. Go on, sell it. I gave a cold laugh, leaned in close to his ear, and whispered a mission so ridiculous, so insane, I couldn't believe I was saying it. I want you to steal the boss's lucky boxers. I finished and immediately stepped back, watching his face, waiting for the explosion of confusion, anger, or maybe even a sword. But I was disappointed. Brock's face didn't change. He just froze for a second, his brow furrowed in intense concentration, as if he were analyzing the deep, strategic meaning of my request. After a full 30 seconds, he slowly looked up, his eyes shining with dawning comprehension and utter admiration. He looked at me and nodded, his expression dead serious. I understand. You understand what? I don't even understand what I said. A brilliant plan, Acolyte. Brock exclaimed, his voice a hushed, excited whisper. The boss's private quarters are a fortress. Stealing his boxers is not only a test of my infiltration skills, but a measure of my devotion. And it's a probe of the boss himself. Genius. Absolutely genius. Don't you worry, he promised. Within 3 days, I will deliver the boss's boxers to you, completely intact. With that, he gave me a sharp nod, turned on his heel, and marched out of the cell. He left me and Dom standing there, utterly bewildered. Dumb. Me. The cell was dead silent. After a long moment, Dom slowly turned his head to me, his face a mask of confusion and shock. What? What did he just say? I swallowed hard. He said, he's going to steal your lucky boxers. Dom's face, in a fascinating display of color, went from pale to red, from red to purple, and finally settled on a shade of enraged magenta. He'll what? A deafening roar echoed through the entire basement. That's it. He's gone too far. Dom stomped around the cell, his aura flaring so intensely that cracks started to appear in the stone walls. I raised that kid like a son, and he wants to steal my underwear. This is the greatest humiliation of my life. The absolute greatest. I huddled in a corner, barely daring to breathe. Bro, don't get mad at me. It was my idea. Of course, I would die before I admitted that. Boss, calm down. I rushed over, putting on my most righteous face. This is proof of Brock's treachery. If he's willing to steal your boxers, what won't he do? Dom stopped dead in his tracks and stared at me. Was this your idea? My heart skipped a beat. I shook my head frantically. No, this was my test for him. I expected him to refuse, to prove his loyalty to you. But he agreed without a second thought. It proves he's a traitor who can't be trusted. My little speech was a masterpiece of blame shifting. Dom listened, and the fury on his face slowly melted away, replaced by deep contemplation. He stroked his chin, pacing back and forth. That makes sense. When you put it that way, it does make sense. He looked at me, his eyes once again filled with admiration. Agent Hayes, you've got brains to go with your guts. This test was a stroke of genius. 2 birds with 1 stone. It tested Brock's loyalty and exposed his treachery. Brilliant. I gave a humble wave. All for the order. Inside, I was screaming, brilliant my ass. The problem now is that Brock is actually going to try to steal your underwear. No. Dom suddenly slapped his thigh. I can't let him succeed. If word of this gets out, my reputation as a ruthless crime lord is finished. So what do we do? I asked cautiously. Dom's brow was furrowed in thought. After a moment, his head snapped up, a glint in his eye. I've got it. He strode over to me, grabbed my shoulders, and looked at me with grave seriousness. Agent Hayes, the order needs your cooperation. I had a very bad feeling about this. Ow! Dom lowered his voice and laid out a plan so mind-boggling it made my teeth ache. Tonight, you sneak into my room. I will give you my lucky boxers. Then you give them to Brock and tell him he succeeded in stealing them. My face must have been a picture, because Dom patted my shoulder reassuringly. I know it's a difficult task, but it's the only way. We can't let Brock get suspicious, and I have to protect my good name. We'll call it Operation Trojan Drawers. I stared at his sincere face, feeling my brain start to overheat. Are all spies this crazy? One is daring to steal them, the other is daring to just hand them over? And I'm stuck as the middleman? What's my cut in all this? A front row seat to the weirdest mission in history? Dumb. I said weakly. I don't know. What if someone sees me sneaking into your room? Don't worry, Dom declared with a grand wave of his hand. My quarters will be completely unguarded tonight. You'll have free run of the place. Besides, this isn't just for me. This is to gain Brock's absolute trust. Think about it. Once he believes he's stolen something so personal, he'll be eating out of the palm of your hand. He made so much sense I couldn't even argue. What else could I say? With tears in my eyes, I nodded. I understand. For the order, I will sacrifice anything. Even my dignity. Dom looked at me, deeply moved. Good man. I knew I could count on you. After this is done, I'm putting you in for a commendation. That night, under the cover of a moonless sky, I slipped through the Syndicate compound like a ghost, dressed head to toe in black. Just as Dom had promised, the path to his private wing was completely deserted. Not a single guard. This was so obviously a setup. I was half expecting Dom to have sent out a memo. Everyone stay in your rooms tonight. The acolyte is coming to steal my underwear. I found his bedroom and pushed the door open. By the faint moonlight filtering through the window, I saw him. Dom Vargo, sitting primly on the edge of his bed. In front of him, laid out in a neat row, was a collection of boxers, red silk, purple velvet, black lace, some with sequins. The sheer variety of styles and colors almost blinded me. I froze in the doorway, petrified. Holy crap. Dom, you have a secret life I know nothing about. Seeing me, Dom seemed a bit embarrassed. He cleared his throat and gestured at the display on his bed, trying to sound casual. Agent Hayes, you're here. Take a look. Which of these do you think looks most like something I normally wear? How the hell am I supposed to know what kind of underwear you wear? I looked at his massive, grizzled frame, then at the flamboyant collection on the bed. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. My eyes scanned the options and finally landed on one pair. Bright pink silk with little cartoon hearts on them. Yeah, the contrast was huge. It was twisted. It fit the profile of a terrifying crime lord perfectly. I pointed. Those. Dom picked up the pink boxers. His face was a tragic mask of conflict, reluctance, and heartbreak, as if he were giving away his firstborn child. He caressed the fabric for a long moment, then finally, gritting his teeth, he held them out to me. Take them, he said, his voice thick with sorrow. And remember, you have to tell Brock he went through hell and high water to get these. Don't you dare tell him I gave them to you. I took the boxers, which were still warm from his body heat, and felt my very soul become tainted. I nodded and turned to leave. Wait, Dom called out again. I looked back. He had dragged a large trunk out from under his bed. He opened it to reveal a treasure trove of women's dresses, all kinds of styles and colors. He looked at me with hopeful eyes. Agent Hayes, since you're already here, maybe you could steal a few of these too? Get lost. Clutching the pair of boxers that had just shattered my understanding of the world, I fled from the boss's quarters. Back in my own room, now upgraded to the acolyte's suite, I threw the boxers on the table like they were radioactive. I felt unclean. I needed a shower. No, I needed to be sanitized. The next morning, Brock showed up at my door, looking exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes. I guess he'd spent the night trying to get past the outer security systems around Dom's quarters and got zapped for his troubles. Ethan, he said, his voice cracking with emotion when he saw me. He looked like he was about to cry. Before he could say another word, I tossed the pink boxers to him. Mission accomplished, I said coolly, maintaining my air of detached competence. Brock fumbled to catch them. When he saw what was in his hands, his brain seemed to short-circuit. His eyes went wide. His mouth formed a perfect O, as if he'd just seen a ghost. They're pink, with little hearts. He looked up at me, his expression one of pure, unadulterated worship, his voice trembling. Ethan, how did you do it? What could I say? That his boss handpicked them and tearfully gave them to me. I had to keep up the act. I clasped my hands behind my back, tilted my head to look at the ceiling at a 45-degree angle, and said in a distant, ethereal voice, when you have true conviction in your heart, all obstacles will melt away before you. Brock shuddered as if struck by lightning. He stared at me, his admiration rapidly escalating into fanatical devotion. Conviction, he muttered to himself. I get it now. I finally get it. Acolyte, you are the wisest, most dedicated among us. With a loud thud, he dropped to one knee, holding the pink boxers aloft like a holy relic. Acolyte, I, Brock Johnson, pledge my undying loyalty to you. From this day forward, I will follow you to the ends of the earth. Dude, are you for real? Over a pair of underwear? You're disowning your adoptive father for a pair of pink boxers? Seeing the crazed look in his eyes, I knew this misunderstanding had spiraled into a black hole from which there was no escape. I sighed and pulled him to his feet. Get up, Brock. We all serve the order. We're equals. Just then, a voice as cold as a shard of ice cut through the air from the doorway. Oh, which order would that be? Brock and I both froze and slowly turned our heads. Leaning against the doorframe was a woman in a blood-red dress. She was stunningly beautiful, but her face was a mask of glacial indifference. Cradled in her arms was a long, cruel-looking sword. Scarlet, the woman who had turned my head into a pile of chunky salsa just for being polite. She was here. Scarlet's gaze slid from my face down to Brock's, still outstretched hands, and the pair of extremely conspicuous pink heart-pattern boxers he was holding. The air in the room instantly dropped 20 degrees. Scarlet's brow furrowed. Her expression shifted from icy calm to confusion, from confusion to disgust, and finally it settled on a look of profound, unutterable contempt. Her red lips parted, and she spoke a single word. Perverts. Brock's face instantly turned the color of a ripe tomato. No. Wait. Scarlet, let me explain, he stammered, frantically trying to hide the boxers. Explain. Scarlet sneered, slowly pushing herself off the doorframe and advancing into the room. It's first thing in the morning. The two of you are locked in a room together, fawning over a pair of pink underwear. What is there to explain? Her eyes darted between the two of us, practically screaming. I can't believe I work with these guys. I felt my reputation, whatever was left of it, circling the drain. Scarlet, you're mistaken, I said, taking a deep breath to calm myself. We were discussing tactics. Tactics? She raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow and pointed a manicured finger at the boxers. With those? What's the plan? Are you going to disgust the enemy to death? Brock looked like he was about to cry. Scarlet, these are trophy. The acolyte. He got them from the boss. He shouldn't have said that. As soon as the words left his mouth, Scarlet's face turned even colder. You stole the boss's underwear. Her voice was laced with pure, unadulterated murder. You two have a death wish. This was bad. We were officially up the creek without a paddle. I looked at Scarlet's eyes, which were practically shooting daggers, and I knew if I didn't clear this up, she was going to end both of us on the spot. My mind raced, and then a spark of insane genius. That's right. I slammed my hand on the table and stood up, meeting her deadly gaze head on. And we're not just stealing the boss's underwear. We're coming for yours next. Scarlet. Question mark. Brock. Brock looked at me as if I'd just sprouted a second head. Scarlet was momentarily stunned, probably because she'd never heard someone so cheerfully and creatively asked to be killed before. Her eyes narrowed, the killing intent pouring off her in waves. What did you say? Say that again. I said. I puffed out my chest, the Crimson Sea brand visible through my shirt. I pointed at Brock, then at myself, and declared with unhinged bravado, we are collecting the underwear of every high-ranking member of the Crimson Syndicate. It is the sacred creed of our newly formed organization, the Brotherhood of the Sacred Boxers. Our goal is to spread the glorious light of undergarments throughout the entire criminal underworld. I was a genius. I was moved by my own quick thinking. Scarlet and Brock, however, were simply shell-shocked into silence by my grand proclamation. The Brotherhood of the Sacred Boxers. Scarlet's lip twitched. Her hand was gripping her sword so tightly her knuckles were white. The way she looked at me had now been upgraded from pervert to completely deranged lunatic. Brock was just shaking his head, frantically mouthing at me, dude, stop talking. We're going to die. Of course I knew the danger. But I also knew that for a hair-trigger psycho like Scarlet, a rational explanation was useless. The more you tried to explain, the more she'd think you were hiding something. The only way to deal with crazy was with bigger, crazier crazy. You had to short-circuit her brain. That's right. I stood tall, my voice ringing with passion. Scarlet, will you join us? Will you contribute your own underwear to the great revival of the underworld? If you hand over your underwear, you will be ordained as the holy matron of our order. The words had barely left my mouth when a flash of silver shot past my head, cleaving a stone pillar behind me in two. You're dead. Scarlet's patience had finally snapped. Her eyes blazing, she drew her sword and lunged. Oh crap, this was a bad idea. Panic seized me, and I turned to run. Brock, save me. Brock, snapping out of his stupor, reacted on pure instinct. Even though he was terrified, he threw himself in front of me. Scarlet, wait, let's just talk about this. Get out of my way. Scarlet kicked him square in the stomach, sending him flying across the room. In the next instant, the tip of her sword was at my throat. The cold steel was so close I could feel the chill on my skin. I froze, not daring to even breathe. This is it. 3 lives, and I'm going to die over a pair of boxers. This is not how I wanted my obituary to read. Any last words, acolyte? Scarlet's voice was arctic. I looked at her face, which was as beautiful as it was terrifying, and my survival instinct took the wheel again. Without thinking, the words just tumbled out of my mouth. Scarlet, you're one of us, right? I said just like Dom had. Same tone, same hushed mystery, same meaningful look. Her sword stopped, a centimeter from piercing my skin. Her murderous eyes flickered, a wave of violent emotion passing through them. It was only for a second, but I saw it. It worked. She really is a mole. Dom, you beautiful, crazy bastard. You were right. My confidence surged. I pressed my advantage, dropping my voice to a conspiratorial whisper. The eagle has landed. Scarlet? Question mark. She frowned, like she didn't understand. My heart sank. Wrong code? I tried another one. The wolf is at the door. Her expression only grew more confused. I panicked and started rattling off every spy code I could think of. The chairman is a fool. Do you have the microfilm? It's your kids, Marty. Something has to be done about your kids. The way Scarlet was looking at me now had progressed from lunatic to complete and utter imbecile. The tip of her sword pressed a little deeper. What are you babbling about? Well, that's it. I'm dead. She's not a mole. Dom, you lying sack of crap, you've killed me. Just as I gave up all hope and braced for the end, Scarlet suddenly withdrew her sword. She took a step back, looking at me with an incredibly complicated expression. Then, mimicking my tone, she lowered her voice. The nest is empty. What? My head snapped up, and I stared at her in shock. What did she just say? The nest is empty, she responded. But I didn't even say the right code. I looked at her face, which now wore triumphant. Aha! I figured out expression, and my brain dissolved into chaos. Lady, is your reaction time measured in geological ages? Seeing my stunned silence, Scarlet assumed she'd guessed the correct countersign, and a flicker of smug satisfaction crossed her face. She cleared her throat, her icy demeanor returning as she sent a private message straight into my mind. You're clever. I'll give you that. You almost had me. Brotherhood of the Sacred Boxers? What were you thinking? Now talk. Who do you work for? The Vanguard? The Assembly? I finally understood. We were all spies, but we were from different competing good guy agencies. This wasn't a coordinated infiltration. It was a clown car of rival spies. I took a deep breath and decided to keep the bluff going. My identity is above your clearance level. I projected back, trying to sound as mysterious as possible. All you need to know is that we share a common enemy. It worked. Scarlet was completely taken in. She thought for a moment, then nodded. I see. You're the coordinator they sent to unify the factions. You can think of it that way. So the Sacred Boxers thing was. She asked a little hesitantly. A test? I bullshitted without batting an eye. A test of your reaction time and loyalty. Congratulations, you passed. A faint blush actually appeared on her cheeks. As if a cheap trick like that would fool me, she said, but her eyes had softened considerably. She glanced over at Brock, who was still groaning on the floor. What about him? She asked quietly. I looked at Brock and sighed. He requires further observation. Scarlet nodded in agreement. I knew it. He's an idiot. Unfit for the mission. The newly designated idiot, Brock, was just staggering to his feet. He looked at the two of us, now apparently on friendly terms, with utter confusion. Scarlet, Ethan, you're not fighting anymore. She shot him a cold look. Fighting? We were just sparring. Then she turned back to me, an inquisitive look in her eyes. Coordinator, what are your orders? Again? Why does everyone keep asking me for orders? I'm the lowest guy on the totem pole here. I looked at her expectant face, then at the sword in her arms. An idea came to me. You know that 1,000-year-old petrified tree in the back garden? I asked. Yes. It's in a restricted area. They say it will never bloom again. I want you to make it bloom, I said simply. Scarlet froze. Make a petrified tree bloom? How is that possible? Nothing is impossible, I said, clasping my hand behind my back and staring into the distance. This is the order's next test for you. Remember, use your sword. Without another word, I turned and walked deeper into the suite, leaving her with my mysterious, enigmatic back. Scarlet stood there, her brow furrowed, trying to unravel the hidden meaning in my words. After a long moment, her eyes lit up with sudden insight. I understand. Use my sword to make the tree bloom. Of course. She gave a respectful bow in my direction. Then, sword in hand, she became a blur of red and vanished, presumably heading for the back garden. Only Brock was left, standing in the middle of the room, still holding the pink boxers, completely lost. Ethan, what? What just happened? The next 2 days were blessedly quiet. Brock, probably traumatized by my recent antics, left me alone, though he sent daily deliveries of expensive supplies and healing tonics, treating me better than he probably treated his own mother. Scarlet had vanished completely. I assumed she was still in the back garden, having a very serious discussion with a petrified tree. This gave me some much-needed peace. I used my new acolyte privileges to lock myself in the Syndicate's library, cramming on the history of this world's criminal and political landscape. And what I learned was terrifying. My old agency, the Aegis Order, was basically a minor league team. The Crimson Syndicate, on the other hand, was one of the 3 major players in the global underworld. A true powerhouse. Somehow, I, a rookie from a third-rate agency, had stumbled my way into the top ranks of a criminal empire. And to make matters worse, it seemed that the entire leadership of that empire, besides me, was composed of other undercover agents. I felt like a husky that had been dropped into a wolf den. Only all the wolves were convinced I was the alpha. My life was a joke. On the 3rd day, as I was reading in the library, a sweet, musical voice came from behind me. Working hard, acolyte. I stiffened and slowly turned around. A girl in a bright yellow sundress with an innocent, doll-like face was smiling at me. Lily, the germaphobe assassin who forced her victims to shower before she killed them. She was here too. So much for my peace and quiet. Can I help you, Lily? I asked, closing my book and plastering on a polite, fake smile. Can't a girl just come and chat with her new senior? Lily asked, fluttering her eyelashes as she plopped down in the chair next to me. A faint, pleasant scent like fresh laundry and flowers drifted from her. She didn't wear perfume. It was just her natural scent. It was very disarming. Too bad I knew what a cold-blooded killer was hiding behind that cute face. Of course, I said noncommittally. So, Lily leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I heard you started a new club, the Brotherhood of the Sacred Boxers. Damn it. How does she know about that already? Brock, you. In your big mouth, my eye twitched. I have no idea what you're talking about, I said with a strained laugh. Oh, Lily drew out the word, her smile turning sly. Because Brock told me all about it. He even told me you got the boss's special pink boxers. I could feel my blood pressure rising. He also said Scarlet went to go chop down a tree so she could join. My temples started to throb. So, acolyte, she batted her eyelashes, looking at me with wide, expectant eyes. Is your club still accepting new members? I want to join too. I looked at her innocent face and took a deep breath. Phoenix. Lily's eyes lit up. But there's an initiation fee, I said coldly. What is it? You have to hand over your own underwear. I was fighting fire with fire, perversion with perversion. I thought for sure that would scare her off. But to my astonishment, Lily just giggled, a bright, musical sound. Acolyte, you're so funny. After she finished laughing, she wiped a tear from the corner of her eye. Then, right there in the middle of the library, she reached into the collar of her dress and slowly pulled out a pair of pale yellow panties. They had little cartoon ducks on them. My brain just shut down. My jaw hit the floor. What is wrong with the women in this organization? Do you all just casually carry around spare underwear to hand out to people? Is there no sense of decency left in this world? Lily pressed the still warm panties into my hand, a mischievous smile on her face. So, am I in now? I clutched the soft fabric in my hand, my worldview having been shattered, reassembled, and then shattered again. Before I could recover, Lily leaned close to my ear and whispered, "By the way, Acolyte, I forgot to tell you, I'm one of us too." I was numb, completely and utterly numb. Another one. Did our side just decide to hold their annual company picnic in the middle of the Crimson Syndicate's headquarters? Why is everyone here? Which agency are you from? I asked weakly. The Bloom Garden. Lily smiled sweetly. What about you, Acolyte? My identity is above your clearance level. I recited my now standard line. Oh, Lily nodded thoughtfully, then looked at me with hero worship in her eyes. You must be him, then. The legendary Agent Zero, the one sent to coordinate all the undercover operations. Agent Zero. What kind of lame call sign was that? But hey, if the shoe fits. Don't ask questions you don't have a clearance for, I said coolly. Understood. Lily immediately snapped to attention, giving me a crisp salute, her expression as serious as if she were accepting a holy sacrament. Agent Zero, your orders. I was so tired. I looked at her eager, expectant face, then at the ducky panties in my hand. I was done. Let the world burn. I just said the first thing that came to my mind. I want you to go clean every bathroom in this entire compound. And I mean clean. I want them so spotless a fly would slip and break its legs if it tried to land. I thought for sure that would disgust her, given her germophobia. But instead, Lily's eyes lit up like a Christmas tree. Clean the bathrooms? She clasped her hands together, her voice filled with excitement. I understand. What do you understand now? The bathrooms. They're the filthiest, most overlooked part of the entire compound. Success is determined by the details. The true strength of an organization is reflected in its sanitation. Agent Zero, you want me to reform the Crimson Syndicate from the ground up, to turn it into a clean, hygienic, and civilized model organization. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I'm on it. Mission accepted. And with that, she shot out of the library like a hurricane, brandishing a feather duster and a bottle of bleach that she seemed to produce from thin air. I was left alone, sitting in stunned silence, holding a pair of pink boxers with hearts and a pair of yellow panties with ducks. I fell into a deep, philosophical funk. Who was I? Where was I? What was I even doing? Why did I start a cult based on underwear? Just as I was in the middle of this existential crisis, the entire compound was rocked by a violent tremor. It was followed by a wild, ecstatic scream that echoed from the back garden. Ha! It bloomed. The tree. It bloomed. It was Scarlett's voice. A cold dread washed over me. I bolted out of the library, joining a tide of confused syndicate members, all rushing towards the back garden. When I got there, panting and out of breath, the sight that greeted me left me speechless. There, in the middle of the garden, was the 1,000-year-old petrified tree, and it had, in a manner of speaking, bloomed. Scarlett was floating in the air above it, her red dress billowing around her like a vengeful angel. The tree itself, once covered in petrified branches, had been shaved completely bare, leaving only a single, massive trunk. And at the very top of that trunk, she had carved a flower, a gigantic multitude. Rose, sculpted out of the stone with thousands upon thousands of precise sword strokes. The petals were intricate and detailed, so perfectly rendered they seemed to glitter in the sunlight. The air was filled with a mixture of deadly killing intent and bizarre artistic expression. Everyone was just staring, dumbfounded. Whoa, you can call that a flower. Scarlett is a beast, making things bloom through sheer brute force. You'd have to be really, really mad at a tree to do that to it. Scarlett, clearly proud of her work, floated gently to the ground. When she saw me, her eyes lit up, and she strode towards me with a triumphant swagger. "Coordinator," she announced, stopping in front of me, her face beaming with a please praise me expression. "Mission accomplished. The flower has bloomed." I looked at the giant stone rose, then at her expectant face. My throat felt like it was full of concrete. I couldn't speak. Lady, I told you to make it bloom, not carve it into a flower. Your ability to misinterpret instructions is truly one of a kind. Ahem. I cleared my throat and forced a smile. Excellent. Very creative. My approval seemed to make her even happier. She leaned in and whispered, I understood your hidden message. You wanted me to send a signal to the order, right? Right. This sword rose represents our iron-willed determination, and it foreshadows the crushing defeat our enemies will soon face. A truly brilliant plan, she gushed, interpreting her own masterpiece. You're absolutely right, I said. What else could I say? Just then, Dom Vargo arrived, drawn by the commotion. When he saw the mutilated tree and the giant rose on top of it, he froze solid. His face cycled through shock, then heartbreak, and finally explosive rage. Scat, let. He pointed a trembling finger at the tree. Do you have any idea what that tree was for? I was using it to. He stammered for a few seconds, but couldn't seem to remember what it was for. I don't think he even knew. Calm down, boss, Scarlet said calmly. I was just meditating on my swordsmanship, and it accidentally bloomed. Accidentally? Dom looked like he was about to have a stroke. You call this an accident? You've destroyed a priceless Syndicate landmark. Seeing that things were about to get ugly, I stepped in. Boss, calm yourself. What Scarlet has done is a great service to the Syndicate. Dom and Scarlet both stopped and stared at me. I pointed at the rose and said, with the gravitas of a seasoned con artist, Boss, look closely. This is no ordinary flower. This is the Iron Blood Rose, an ancient omen. Its appearance signifies that the Crimson Syndicate is about to enter an unprecedented era of prosperity. The blooming of a dead tree symbolizes our rebirth. It is a sign that we are destined for greatness. My words were so full of conviction that the surrounding members, after a moment of stunned silence, erupted in a deafening cheer. The acolyte is right. It's a miracle. Heaven favors the Crimson Syndicate. Dom was taken in by my bullshit. He looked at the stone rose, his anger slowly fading. For real. Absolutely. I thumped my chest for emphasis. I swear it on the brand on my chest. Dom glanced at the angry red sea on my skin and was finally convinced. He cleared his throat and addressed the crowd. That's right. This is a sign from the heavens. From this day forward, this garden is holy ground, and this Iron Blood Rose is the new symbol of our syndicate. The members cheered again. Scarlet shot me a look of gratitude and admiration. I looked at the crowd of hardened criminals I had just so easily fooled and felt exhausted. All I wanted was to be a disposable grunt. Why was that so hard? Just then, a scout came sprinting up the hill, his face a bizarre mixture of terror and pleasant surprise. Report. Boss, it's an emergency. Dom frowned. What's wrong? The scout, panting for breath, pointed down the mountain. The bathrooms. All the bathrooms in the compound. They're glowing. Glowing? How can a bathroom glow? Did someone's science experiment go wrong? Dom and I exchanged a look of mutual confusion. Let's go see. He led the way, and a huge crowd of us marched down the mountain to the latrine area. Before we even got close, a strange and surprisingly fresh scent washed over us. Yes, you read that right. Fresh. The usual soul-crushing stench was gone, replaced by a complex bouquet of 100 different flowers. It was actually kind of pleasant. When we arrived at the main bathroom block, everyone stopped dead in their tracks. The once filthy latrines had been scrubbed clean from top to bottom. The floors shone like mirrors. The walls had been repainted, and someone had even stenciled little red flowers on them. But the most insane part was the toilets themselves. Each bowl had been filled with a shimmering, phosphorescent powder, which cast a bright, holy-looking glow over the entire room. And there, in the middle of it all, was Lily. She was wearing a custom-made hazmat suit, complete with a face mask and gloves, and was cheerfully humming to herself as she scrubbed the last toilet with a giant brush. Her face was beaming with a look of pure, unadulterated satisfaction. My God, is this a bathroom? One of the members whispered, rubbing his eyes. It's so clean. I feel like I'd be disrespecting it if I used it. Do you guys smell that? I think my soul is being cleansed. Dom was speechless. He pointed at the glowing powder in the toilet bowl. Lily, what? What is that? Lily turned, saw us, and gave a sweet smile. Boss, this is my own special creation, 100-flower toilet sparkle. It's made from the pollen of 108 different flowers, mixed with powdered moonstone. It not only eliminates odors, but it also has a calming effect and can help soothe inner demons. She puffed out her chest proudly. As of right now, the Crimson Syndicate has the cleanest, most luxurious, and most spiritually uplifting bathrooms in the entire world. From now on, using the restroom will be not just a release, but a form of meditation. Everyone was dumbfounded. Meditating in a bathroom? Only you would think of that, Lily. Dom opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked at me, his eyes pleading for help. What could I do? I was just as lost as he was. I had to keep the story going. Boss, Lily's actions have a much deeper meaning. Dom, and what would that be? Think about it, I said, gesturing at the palatial bathroom. What part of an organization truly reflects its power and resources? Not the front gate, not the main hall. The bathrooms. When outsiders see that even our toilets are this luxurious, this well-maintained, what will they think? They'll think that an organization that pays this much attention to its bathrooms must be so powerful, so wealthy, that it is beyond their comprehension. This isn't just sanitation. This is bathroom diplomacy, a way to defeat our enemies without even fighting. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I was, once again, impressed by my own talent for bullshit. The surrounding members nodded enthusiastically, completely sold. The acolyte is a genius. He sees the truth in all things. Of course, it all makes sense now. Dom, after hearing my explanation, had a moment of enlightenment. He looked at Lily, his eyes filled with pride. Lily, you've done well. I was wrong to doubt you. From this day forward, you are the Crimson Syndicate's Chief Sanitation Officer. All matters of hygiene are now under your command. Lily saluted smartly. I won't let you down, boss. I watched this bizarre, yet harmonious scene and felt like I was losing my mind. One person carves a tree into a flower and becomes a celebrated artist. Another turns a bathroom into a glowing sanctuary and gets a promotion. And I, the one who started all this, am now some kind of revered prophet. The Crimson Syndicate, under our leadership, was on the fast track to becoming a harmonious, civilized, and artistically inclined model for criminal organizations everywhere. Just then, a series of frantic gongs echoed from the front gate. Zong, zong, dong, the highest level of alarm. A major enemy was attacking. Dom's face changed. Damn it, it's the Aegis Order. Just as he spoke, a scout came sprinting up, falling to his knees. Report. Boss, Director Thorne of the Aegis Order is here. He's brought 3 other agencies with him. They're at the foot of the mountain, saying they're here to bring justice and wipe us out. The Aegis Order? My old bosses? What were they doing here? Were they trying to rescue me? When they heard the name Aegis Order, Dom, Scarlet, Lily, and even Brock all had strange expressions on their faces. And then, all at once, they turned and looked at me. Their eyes all said the same thing. Agent Zero, your old agency is here to kill us. What do we do? What could I do? I was panicking just as much as they were. The atmosphere in the Syndicate's war room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Dom sat on his throne, his brow furrowed. Below him stood Brock, Scarlet, Lily, and me. The Crimson Syndicate's undercover agent Fab4 was holding its first official war council. All right, let's hear it. What's the plan? Dom said, breaking the silence. Brock spoke first. Boss, the Aegis Order is tough, but we're not pushovers. I'll lead the charge. We'll meet them at the gate and send them running back to their mothers. As he said this, he kept glancing at me, as if to say, how was that? Was I convincing? Scarlet just snorted, her arms crossed over her chest. Kill them. Lily, however, had a notepad out. According to my intel, Director Marcus Thorne is a formidable opponent. His Celestial Blade technique is said to be unstoppable. He also has the top agents from the Cobalt and Azure factions with him. A direct confrontation is not in our favor. After her analysis, she too looked up at me, her eyes saying, Agent Zero, your orders? All eyes in the room were now on me. The pressure was immense. What could I possibly do? I was just a grunt. But in their eyes, I was Agent Zero, the mastermind, the leader. I couldn't fool now. I took a deep breath, stood up, and walked over to the large tactical map of the compound. My mind raced. Fighting was not an option. One side was my old agency, the other was my new colleagues. No matter who I helped, I'd be screwed. There was only one solution. I had to bullshit my way out of it. Again, my plan formed. I stabbed a finger down on the map. "We're not going to fight," I said coolly. For pairs of eyes stared at me in confusion. "We're not," Dom asked. "So, we just surrender?" "Of course not." I smiled, a mysterious glint in my eye. "We're going to welcome them." Welcome them. They were all completely baffled. "That's right." I pointed at the map and began my masterpiece of insane strategy. "And we're going to do it with style. Here are my orders." I began, channeling every movie general I'd ever seen. "Brock, sir." Brock snapped to attention. "I want you to take a team to the front gate. Roll out the red carpet. Hang a banner. On the banner, I want it to read, 'A warm welcome to our esteemed colleague from the Aegis Order, Brock.'" "Scarlet, here," she said through gritted teeth. "You will assemble an honor guard. Line them up on both sides of the red carpet. I want them looking sharp, swords polished, uniforms pressed. And I want them to have a chant. The chant is, 'Aegis and Crimson hand in hand. Together we'll bring peace to the land.'" Scarlet's hand was twitching, like her sword was trying to leap out of its sheath and murder me. "Lily, ready, sir." Lily was scribbling furiously in her notepad. "You're on hospitality. Break out the best food, the finest wine. And most importantly, make sure our newly renovated 5-star bathrooms are ready. I want our guests from the Order to have an experience they will never forget." "Lily, mission accepted." I finished my instructions and turned to Dom. "And finally, boss, I need you to greet them personally." Dom stared at me, dumbfounded. "And what do I do?" "You stand at the front gate. When Director Thorne arrives, you shake his hand, look him deep in the eyes, and say, with all the warmth you can muster, 'Brother, I knew you'd come.'" Dom just stared, and then, with a soft thud, he slid right off his throne and onto the floor. Outside the gates of the Crimson Syndicate, Director Marcus Thorne hovered in the air, the combined forces of the Aegis Order and their allies spread out behind him. He was the very picture of righteous fury. "You fiends of the Crimson Syndicate, hear me. I am Director Thorne of the Aegis Order. Your reign of terror is over. Surrender now and face justice." His voice boomed across the valley, but the expected counterattack of snarling thugs and dark energy never came. After a moment of eerie silence, the massive gates of the compound slowly creaked open. The first thing they saw was a lush, red carpet, rolling all the way from the gate to their feet. "Thorne?" Question mark. Next, 2 lines of black-clad Syndicate enforcers marched out, swords drawn, and formed an honor guard along the sides of the carpet. They all looked grim and deadly. Thorne braced himself for a fight. But then, the leader of the group, a woman in red, Scarlet, suddenly raised her sword to the sky and screamed, at the top of her lungs, a sound of pure, unadulterated enthusiasm. "Aegis and Crimson, hand in hand." And all the enforcers behind her roared in unison. "Together we'll bring peace to the land." The sound was so loud, so passionate, it was frankly terrifying. Thorne and the entire Aegis Order army just stared, completely dumbfounded. What in the world was going on? They had come for a war, not a corporate team-building retreat. Before they could process this, another group emerged from the gate. This one was led by a large, friendly-looking man, Brock, who was holding up a massive banner. On it, in large, cheerful letters, were the words, "A warm welcome to our esteemed colleagues from the Aegis Order." Thorne's eye started to twitch. He felt like he was losing his mind. Was this really the most feared criminal organization in the world? They were more polite than half the agencies on his own side. Just as he was starting to wonder if he'd come to the right address, a cute girl in a yellow dress, Lily, came skipping out, carrying a large platter of fruit. "Welcome, honorable agents. You must be tired from your long journey. Please, try some of our Syndicate's famous blood oranges. They're to die for." She cheerfully offered the platter to Thorne. He looked at the fruit, which was a deep, unsettling red and seemed to be faintly pulsing, and swallowed hard. To eat or not to eat? As he was contemplating this, the main event finally arrived. Dominic the Butcher Vargo, head of the Crimson Syndicate, emerged from a gate. But he wasn't wearing his usual menacing black armor. Instead, he was dressed in a bright red tuxedo, a massive, welcoming smile plastered on his face. He strode right up to Thorn and, before the director could say a word, grabbed his hand and started shaking it vigorously. "Marcus, my brother. I knew you'd come. I missed you so much." Thorn. "Brother? Who are you calling brother?" Thorn felt like he was having an aneurysm. He tried to pull his hand back, but Dom's grip was like a vice. "Vargo, what is the meaning of this?" he sputtered. "Meaning? I'm welcoming you, of course," Dom said with a look of utter sincerity. "I've long heard that the Aegis Order is full of talent. In fact, just recently, you sent one of your best and brightest, a young man named Ethan Hayes, to come study with us. And the moment I saw that kid, I knew he was special. I made him my acolyte on the spot. It's fate, I tell you. Our two organizations were meant to be friends." Dom's speech left everyone, on both sides, completely stunned. Ethan Hayes? That rookie they'd sent on a suicide mission? He was now the second in command of the Crimson Syndicate? This had to be a joke. And then Ethan Hayes, dressed in the pristine white robes of the acolyte, stepped out from behind Dom. I looked at Director Thorn, smiled, and gave a respectful bow. "Director Thorn, it's good to see you again." When Thorn saw my face, he looked as if he'd been struck by lightning. It really was Ethan, and his aura, though it was tinged with the Syndicate's darkness, his core energy was still that of the Order. But the most shocking thing was the front of my robe, which was slightly open, revealing the raw, red brand of the Crimson Sea on my chest. In an instant, Thorn's mind constructed an epic tale of a young hero, infiltrating the enemy, suffering unimaginable torture, but never losing his faith. His eyes turned red. My boy." Thorn's voice trembled. He looked at the brand on my chest, then at my calm face, and the anger in his eyes was replaced by boundless pride and heartbreak. You've suffered so much." He grabbed my hand, tears streaming down his face. Director, your imagination is working overtime. I just got a little burn. I'm not some tragic hero. I did what I had to do, sir," I said, playing along. "For the Order." Well said. Well said." Thorn clapped me on the shoulder, his voice thick with emotion. "A true agent of Aegis. Don't you worry, son. We're here now. We're going to get you out of this den of vipers." At that, Dom cleared his throat loudly. "Now, hold on a minute, Marcus. What do you mean, den of vipers? We're a reformed organization, and Ethan is happy here. He's the acolyte. He's got status, power. Why would he want to leave? Besides," Dom leaned in and whispered, "don't you want to hear about all the valuable intelligence he's gathered on the inside?" Thorn froze. His eyes lit up. Of course. Ethan had successfully infiltrated the Syndicate. He must have access to all their secrets. This was the biggest intelligence coup in the history of the Order. His entire demeanor changed. He turned back to Dom, a friendly smile on his face. "Dominic, my friend, perhaps I was a bit hasty. We came today to open a dialogue, a friendly exchange of ideas. Now you're talking." Dom laughed, slinging an arm around Thorn's shoulders. "Come, brother, come. I prepared a feast. We'll eat, we'll drink, and you have to try our new 5-star bathrooms. I guarantee you'll never want to leave." And with that, he dragged the utterly bewildered director of the Aegis Order through the gates. The army of agents behind them just looked at each other, shrugged, and followed them in. And so, a battle that should have drenched the mountains in blood instead turned into a very strange, very friendly diplomatic visit. 3 months later, in the back garden of the Crimson Syndicate, under the stony gaze of the Iron Blood Rose, a massive round table was filled with people. Dom Vargo, Director Thorn, Brock Johnson, Scarlet, Lily. The leaders of the underworld and the top agents of justice were all sitting together, sharing barbecue and beer, the atmosphere as lively as a family reunion. "Here, Marcus, try the grilled basilisk wing. It's my secret recipe," Dom said, cheerfully handing a skewer of something vaguely reptilian to Thorn. Thorn took it without flinching. "Delicious. A bit chewy. You have to try this griffin leg, Dom. Great for your complexion." A short distance away, Scarlet was passionately debating the finer points of sword-based manicure techniques with a group of female agents. Lily was leading a tour group of rookies through her proudest creation, the fully automated, eco-friendly 5-star bathroom system. And Brock, Brock was trying to sell a group of senior agents his new line of official boss-approved pink heart boxers, which were rumored to have protective properties. And me, Ethan Hayes, the ambassador of peace who had made all this possible, was sitting alone on a nearby hill, gazing at this ridiculously harmonious scene with the dead eyes of a man who had seen too much. After 3 months of friendly exchanges, the Aegis Order and the Crimson Syndicate had signed a treaty of eternal peace and mutual cooperation. The age-old conflict between law and crime was over, and it was all my fault. I was hailed as a hero by both sides, but only I knew the truth. I wasn't a hero. I was just a guy who really didn't want to die a fourth time. I was so tired. Just then, Dom and Thorne came stumbling up the hill, their arms around each other's shoulders, both completely drunk. "Ethan," Dom bellowed, "you're the greatest thing that ever happened to the Syndicate." "Nonsense," Thorne slurred. "He's the pride of the Order." They argued for a bit, then both turned to look at me. "Ethan, you tell us. Were you an agent of justice or a lord of crime?" I looked at their hopeful, drunken faces. I looked down at the party, where a Syndicate enforcer and an Aegis agent were now engaged in a friendly wrestling match. I took a deep breath and spoke 2 words. "I'm done. Done with all of this. I'm so incredibly done. Just let a meteor hit this place already." And